The message popped up in the family group chat at 5 a.m., marked with a red warning icon. Emergency meeting, Saturday, 6 p.m. at home. The whole family hopes Leah will come so we can find a solution to the current situation. The current situation. That phrase made me chuckle, even as I sat alone in my studio apartment in Seattle. It was smaller than any bedroom in my parents' mansion back in Connecticut, but it was mine. No loans, no handouts. I poured myself a cup of coffee and reread the message. The wording was too polished to be spontaneous. Clearly, Mom had drafted it the night before, likely after a strategy session with Dad, my sister Brooklyn, and possibly Aunt Ellen. A soft intervention. A family strategy session, disguised as concerned. To them, my decision to leave my strategy consultant role at Devereaux & Klein, one of the top firms in New York, was a clear sign I was spiraling. I had once been their pride, graduated with honors from Dartmouth, hired in Manhattan just 3 weeks after graduation, name mentioned in executive meetings. But one morning 2 years ago, I placed my resignation letter on my boss's desk, transferred my entire savings into an unnamed startup, and started from zero. I chose a field my family saw as vague, even delusional, AI-powered educational technology. And to this day, they still saw me as someone who needed saving. I glanced at the gray blazer hanging by the door. Not designer. And not one of those tailored suits Mom used to send every Thanksgiving. I'd chosen it intentionally. Neat enough not to seem careless, but ordinary enough not to look like I was trying to prove something. The flight from Seattle to Hartford took nearly 6 hours. I rented an old car at the airport and drove straight to the house I grew up in, a neoclassical-style mansion with white walls and slate-blue roof tiles, nestled in a neighborhood where every streetlight bore a plaque with a family name. When I arrived, I parked along the curb. I didn't dare pull into the circular drive where Dad's and Brooklyn's cars were. His brand-new Lexus, her limited edition Range Rover, as always. I checked my phone and saw a message from Grant, our company's CFO. The Business Monthly piece goes live at 6:30 p.m. Eastern. Get ready, I replied. Perfect timing. He shot back almost instantly. Brutal. I adjusted my collar, tightened the belt on my blazer, and stepped onto the porch. I didn't even get a chance to knock before the door swung open. Mom stood there in a Carolina Herrera dress, her polite smile doing little to hide the tension beneath her pale pink lipstick. Leah, you're 2 minutes late. We don't live by your time zone anymore, I said, walking inside. The living room looked like a miniature TEDx stage. Conference table, bottled water, whiteboard, laptops open. Dad sat at the head, stern as if about to sign a multi-million-dollar contract. Brooklyn was next to her husband Jason, both wearing expressions fit for an HR interview. Aunt Ellen, who always showed up for emotional support sessions, was already holding her notepad. Leah, Dad began, we're here because we're concerned. You're heading down the wrong path. I chose the straight-backed velvet chair directly across from the whole advisory board. You don't need to worry about me. Worry about the people who thought I wouldn't survive my first winter out there. Mom sighed. You had it all. A dream job, a 6-figure salary, an apartment in Soho. And now? An unknown tech project. A rental apartment. A car that doesn't even meet our driveway's standards. That's right, Jason chimed in. EdTech's saturated. There's no growth left without multi-million-dollar funding. You're throwing away the best parts of your life, Dad said, his voice low but forceful enough to quiet the room. We've all worked hard. Education, careers, building our positions, and you've thrown that away just to play with a non-revenue-generating software project? It's not software. It's an AI-optimized learning ecosystem, I replied. Call it what you want. Brooklyn shrugged. But you're gambling with your future. You could have had everything, like Mason does. I tilted my head. Mason? Our cousin in Boston? Yes, Mom jumped in. Just got promoted to regional executive at Wells Fargo. 32. owns a home in Beacon Hill. Beautiful wife, well-behaved kids. And you, Leah? You can't keep living like this. I gave a faint smile. You have no idea how I live. Aunt Ellen cleared her throat, trying to maintain a positive tone. We all just want what's best for you. And if you need help, we're here. By dragging me back into corporate? I interrupted. Or reminding me that I let Daniel go? Daniel, my ex. The one they imagined marrying in a Martha's Vineyard ceremony where the groom's side was finance royalty and the bride's side would be a graceful footnote. When I broke up with him to focus on my startup, Mom barely spoke to me for a month. Drayson, Brooklyn's husband, set down his tea, adjusted his collar, and spoke like he was presenting at a board meeting. Leah, it's not that we don't believe in you, but I've reviewed your business model, or at least what's publicly available, and frankly, there's no clear sign of growth. I leaned back and folded my arms. Jason, you once called your company a brand connector platform, but it was just another repeat marketplace. Didn't you label yourself a visionary on LinkedIn? He paused briefly but maintained his MBA smile. I'm just looking at it from an investor's perspective. I glanced at Brooklyn. Has he already tried pitching 3 times? Brooklyn blinked. Excuse me? I looked directly at Jason. You submitted funding applications for 3 different investment rounds in the past 2 years, all of which were rejected. The most recent was last month, sent to a venture capital firm based in San Francisco. Am I right? Jason sat upright, his face paling slightly. Leah, my mom began, but I raised my hand gently. And just to remind you, Jason, I continued, my voice as light as the breeze, that VC firm, Wild Tree Capital, is a subsidiary of LumenEdge Ventures. And who's the majority stakeholder in LumenEdge? I paused, making eye contact with each person in the room. That would be my company. The room fell into silence. My dad pressed his hand to his forehead. Brooklyn swallowed hard, and Jason sat frozen, not blinking. You called my product unviable, I went on, while pitching to the very system I oversee. Jason rose from his seat, his voice unsteady. I had no idea. Exactly. And you also didn't know it was rejected due to lack of financial transparency. The 2 previous rounds were flagged internally for inconsistent figures. You investigated us? Brooklyn said as if stunned. No, I shook my head. I just know who interacts with my ecosystem. That's called responsible management. Aunt Ellen let out a quiet breath. I think maybe we've all been misunderstanding what Leah has accomplished. Thank you, Auntie, I said. But no need to defend me. The truth is, no one here has ever asked what I've actually been doing. You all just saw that I no longer fit the family's definition of success and assumed I had failed. I stood up and adjusted my cuff. In less than 15 minutes, Business Monthly will publish a feature on my company about the technology now being integrated into educational systems at over 80 schools across 4 states. But for now, if no one minds, I'd like to grab one of Mom's almond cookies. Still in the blue tin, right? Silence hung in the air. Jason looked down, and Brooklyn stared at the table. I walked straight to the kitchen, surprisingly calm. Just as I opened the tin, my phone buzzed in my pocket. Not the regular ringtone. This one was the special tone I set for Grant, my CFO and co-founder. I picked up the phone and read the brief message. It's live. There was no need to ask. I knew exactly what it was. The Business Monthly article. The name I no longer had to hide. I returned to the living room just as Brooklyn looked up from her phone. She stared at me like she'd just seen a ghost walk out of a dusty family portrait. Leah? She stammered. Why are you on the homepage of Business Monthly? Jason snatched the phone from her hands, scrolled down, then froze. Leah Carter, 29, co-founder and CEO of Edenova, one of the fastest-growing AI education startups in the US. Most recent valuation, $1.6 billion. The air in the room vanished. I walked to the table, refilled my glass, then looked straight at my dad. So, does anyone want to know what my company actually does? The silence lingered. I set the glass down and pulled a tablet from my bag. With one tap, the screen displayed Edenova's demo interface. We develop adapted learning systems for high school students, using AI to personalize learning paths, bridging achievement gaps across regions and socioeconomic backgrounds. Every learning behavior is analyzed in real time to adjust teaching strategies. I switched to a growth chart. As of last month, our system was piloted in 83 public schools across California, Oregon, and Texas. Student performance improved by 42% over 6 months. Our tech team just signed partnership contracts with 2 major school districts in Florida. My mom hadn't blinked, her body frozen beside a wine glass she hadn't touched. I flipped to the financials slide. Our latest funding round, led by Helios Ventures, raised $240 million, closed in just 11 days. And this morning, Grant confirmed we finalized an acquisition of a Canadian online learning platform worth $130 million. My dad gripped the armrest. So, you built all this in the past 2 years without saying a word to the family? I looked up, calm, because you were too busy assuming I was falling apart to ask where I was actually going. Jason stammered, but what about LumenEdge? LumenEdge is a subsidiary of Edenova Capital, our new independent investment arm launched earlier this year. I looked straight at him. And yes, it was Edenova Capital that rejected your pitch last month. The review team flagged it as unsustainable, data inflated, and lacking audited financials. Jason's face drained of color. Brooklyn looked at me like she didn't recognize the sister once dismissed as a dreamer. I turned to my mom, who still hadn't moved. You once asked how I've been living? Well, this is it. I live to build something I believe in. I chose silence because I knew that if I spoke up, you'd only try to drag me back to the family's outdated definition of success. I don't need validation to succeed, but if you're asking why I kept it from you, the answer is simple. Because you never asked with a heart that truly wanted to understand. The room was silent. Outside the window, the sky had turned deep blue. I got to my feet, closing the tablet in one motion. I didn't come here to prove anything, but I also didn't come to be lectured. I came because I'm ready for this family to see that my current situation doesn't need saving. It's reshaping the future of education. Just then, Brooklyn's phone rang again. She glanced at the screen and spoke as if in disbelief. CNN just reposted the article, and they're inviting you for an interview Monday morning. I just smiled. Perfect timing. I've got a meeting with the California Department of Education on Monday. Hopefully, it won't overlap. I walked toward the door, then paused and turned back. Oh, Jason. If you're still planning to fundraise, feel free to try again in 6 months. But next time, submit a clearer proposal. And maybe don't call the CEO a delusional dreamer in your internal emails. Grant has a habit of forwarding those to me. I opened the door. Outside, a black sedan was already waiting. The driver stepped out to open the door. I glanced back at the room one last time. I'm still Leah, just not the Leah you imagined. The next morning, I woke up at 6 a.m. to the soft light coming through the window of my small Seattle studio. My phone was on silent, but the screen was filled with notifications. Leah, can you call me back? I didn't know it was this big. Brooklyn, you should have told me from the beginning. I'm really sorry. You're better than anyone in this family ever gave you credit for. Jason, about the fundraising, maybe we can meet and discuss in more detail? Honestly, I admire you. And Ellen, Leah, I'm so proud of you. If you have time, I'd love to take you to lunch. No work talk, just family. And dozens more messages from distant relatives, old classmates, former coworkers at Devereaux and Klein, even Daniel, the ex who once told me I needed to be more realistic if I wanted to succeed in the real world. His message was just 3 words. I was wrong. I set the phone down, turned on the coffee machine, and sat at my desk. All of today's interviews had already been scheduled before the article went live. All I had to do was show up and keep doing what I'd been doing for the past 2 years. At 10 a.m., I walked into the Edenova headquarters, a 4-story building on the edge of Lake Union, its exterior covered in frosted glass. No flashy signs, no need for surface-level fame. Everything was designed to reflect the philosophy Grant and I had built together. Efficient, refined, and ahead of its time. "Everyone's buzzing like crazy," said Hannah, our head of communications, as I stepped into the lobby. "CNBC has called 3 times. They want to film an interview this afternoon, if you're open to it. Send them to the 3rd floor. The Nebula meeting room has great lighting." As I stepped into the elevator, another message came in from Mom. "Mom, your dad is planning to fly to Seattle next week. He says he wants to understand your work, not to judge, just to learn. Can you make time?" I didn't reply. When someone misses the chance to see you from the beginning, they have to learn to wait for the right moment to be let back in. The interview with CNBC went smoothly. They kept the setup simple: a whiteboard, a desk lamp, and one question. "What made you keep this secret for 2 years, even from your family?" I looked straight into the camera, voice steady. Because when you tell people you're building something that's never been done before, the first thing they ask isn't how to help, it's whether you'll fail. I needed space to think big without being shrunk by doubt. And as it turns out, silence is where vision grows best. That answer was clipped into a 30-second segment and quickly went viral on LinkedIn, Twitter, and major news outlets. Soon after, I began receiving emails from principals, school district directors, even a representative from the Washington governor's office requesting a meeting. Meanwhile, my personal phone kept lighting up. Brooklyn messaged for the 3rd time. "Brooklyn, I was so wrong, you don't have to reply. But if you ever need me, I'll be here." I looked at the message, feeling neither anger nor sentimentality, just the clarity that everything was finally falling into place. When you no longer need to be seen, that's when others start wanting to really look. By day's end, I sat alone in my office, the sunset casting amber light through the windows. Grant walked in, holding a water bottle and a freshly printed data sheet. "You should see this," he said, placing it on the desk. "What is it?" I asked. "We just made the top 10 global AI education platforms to watch list. Business Tech and Innovateed posted it simultaneously." I let out a soft laugh. That might be worth sharing with the family. "So, are you going to call them back?" Grant asked gently, not pressing. I paused for a moment, then shook my head. "Not yet. They're moving too fast after standing still for 2 years. You know, Grant, not everyone's ready to face the version of you they once dismissed." I turned back to my screen and opened next month's roadmap. 3 new schools in Edenova were preparing to implement the Edenova system. Family can wait. The world can't. That afternoon, as I was preparing materials for a meeting with Sarah Chin, the legendary investor known for backing unicorn startups, Maya, my assistant, knocked lightly on the glass. "Leah, there's an unannounced guest waiting at reception. He says his name is William Turner." I looked up, fingers still on the keyboard. That name echoed like a voice from a locked-away chapter of the past. "What did he say when he arrived?" I asked. "Just that he used to know you and wants to have a personal conversation," Maya replied, trying not to smile. "He's wearing a suit, Armani, but it's a little wrinkled, probably because of the rain." I sat up straighter. "Send him up, but only for 5 minutes, and put him in the side conference room. No tea." Maya inclined her head slightly and left without another word. Less than 2 minutes later, William stepped into the small room next to my office, the one we usually use for intern interviews. The white lighting made his face look even paler, probably not helped by the slightly creased cream-colored shirt at his cuffs. "Leah," he said, that same familiar smile still lingering, the one that used to fluster me back in college. "You look very successful." I didn't stand. I simply tilted my head. "Still Leah, huh? The same one you told should stay in a support role because tech is a man's game?" He paused. "I didn't think that comment would stick with you this long. You said it in a meeting with the investment board," I reminded him. "In front of 5 people, and then, what was it? Your idea is cute, but it won't survive outside PowerPoint?" William sighed. "I'm not here to argue. I came because I was wrong, and I wanted to apologize." I waited a beat. "Wrong, or surprised that I've reached a place you never thought I could?" "Both," he said honestly. "I never imagined you'd build something like Edenova. I read the CNBC article, and I felt I should apologize before I fall too far behind." I sat upright. "Did you know your company submitted a partnership proposal 2 weeks ago?" William blinked. "That proposal was rejected this morning," I said calmly. "Your project still relies on data models from 2 years ago. No optimized AI, no open APIs, no system integration readiness." I stood up and opened the door. "And if you want honest advice from me, next time, don't use the label old friend to bypass reception. Around here, everyone books in advance." William bit his lip, eyes lowered. "I understand." I said nothing more. Maya arrived right on time, gesturing toward the elevator. He left without looking back. 10 minutes later, I was in the main conference room, where Sarah Chin had just set her handbag on the chair. She was a symbol of a generation of investors who didn't chase markets, but shaped them. "Hello, Leah," she said, shaking my hand, her eyes gleaming with interest. I saw a rather flustered gentleman walking out. "Let me guess, the past?" "As someone who once thought I wasn't good enough to sit at this table." Sarah laughed heartily. "Good. People like that serve a purpose. They remind us that doubt from the wrong person is the strongest fuel." I pulled up the first slide. "Edenova is about to launch a new pilot model with 12 boarding schools in Vermont, and we're preparing for our international expansion phase. And that's exactly why I'm here. Leah, I don't just want to invest money. I want to invest belief. And it seems you're not lacking in that." I looked up, meeting her gaze. "True, but I'm selective about where I place it. Whoever I choose must believe in the future I'm building, not in a replica of what they already know." The meeting lasted 90 minutes, deep, specific, and full of vision. On 4 p.m., as I was reviewing the implementation contract for the boarding school network in Vermont, Maya walked in holding a tablet, her expression hesitant. "Leah? Brooklyn is downstairs. She came without an appointment and says she'll wait as long as it takes." I looked up from the screen. "How long has she been here?" "Over 2 hours. I asked her to leave, but she said, 'I won't go until Leah agrees to see me.' She's still in the side lounge, next to the staff coffee bar." I sat still for a moment, then slowly closed my laptop. "Bring her to meeting room 3. Should I offer her coffee?" "No, coffee is for people who are respected." 10 minutes later, I walked into the side conference room. Brooklyn was seated, clutching the handle of her Prada bag like it was the last shield between her and vulnerability. Her once perfect hair had begun to unravel, and her heels were off, placed under the table. At first glance, no one would have guessed she was once called the family's first pride by our mother. "Leah?" She immediately stood. "You're finally seeing me. You've been waiting. That means you need something from me." I sat down, eyes locked on hers. Brooklyn hesitated. "It's not just about work." "So it is about work," I cut in. "Jason is trying to find an educational partner to save his new project. They haven't met enrollment targets to secure the initial funding. He thinks if they partner with Edenova, or even just get your approval, investors might give them more time. I crossed my arms, voice cold. Jason once called Edenova a demo product in an email to a group of investors in Chicago. He also said, "This company is built on a feminist tech fantasy." I leaned back. Did he think I wouldn't find out? Brooklyn looked down. You don't deserve that. You built an entire system. I know that now. I see it clearer than anyone. I'm sorry. Leah, my tone remained steady. Jason didn't just belittle my work. He belittled me. And you stood beside him at every party, every whisper, and said nothing. When I needed someone to believe in me, you looked at me like I was naive. Leah, I was wrong, but I'm trying to make it right, Brooklyn said quickly. Not just to save the project. I want us to be sisters again. I know what I lost. I looked at her for a moment, then slowly stood. You know what hurt me most? Not that you didn't help, but that you stood by while they dismissed me and said nothing. I walked to the door but didn't open it. As for the partnership, not happening. She pushed herself up, voice trembling. You're really cutting us off? I turned back. You say you're sorry, but you still don't understand. It's not about hate. It's about knowing what no longer belongs. The room was silent. Only the distant hum of a hallway printer filled the space. You can leave, I said calmly. Or sit for a few more hours, like before. That's your decision. But I won't be the one holding the door open. I stepped out, never looking back. When I returned to my office, Maya leaned in and asked quietly, should I arrange a car to take Ms. Brooklyn to the airport? No. She knows her way home, and if she doesn't, then it's time she learns. 1 month after the Business Monthly article, I began settling into a rhythm filled with non-stop calls, little downtime, and countless partnership offers from places that once turned away. Still, I kept my routine the same. Start the day at 6 a.m., end by 8 p.m., unless something urgent came up. On Wednesday morning, Maya entered my office earlier than usual, holding her tablet with a slightly puzzled look. Leah, there's someone waiting in the lobby. He says he's your father. I froze. My father? Maya gave a small nod. He's been here for over an hour, just sitting there on the leather chair. Hasn't spoken to anyone. I pulled up the lobby camera, and there he was. Thomas Carter, CEO of Carter & Holt Consulting, the largest strategy firm in Connecticut. A man who used to walk into any boardroom like he built it himself. Now, sitting quietly by the glass. His coat wrinkled, leather shoes dull, hands noticeably thinner. I took a deep breath. Send him up. 10 minutes later, my father stepped into the room. His eyes scanned slowly across the whiteboards filled with algorithms, system models, and data integration diagrams. He paused in front of the framed photo of me receiving an award at the EdTech conference in Berlin. I motioned for him to sit. You're here to say something, aren't you? He placed his leather case on the table and opened it. Inside was a neatly clipped bundle of documents. Printed research papers on AI in education, my CNBC interview, and a tech roadmap I presented at a recent conference. I've read everything you've written, everything you've built, he said slowly. Even a post you published on a tech blog 3 years ago. I didn't know about it, because I never read anything you did. I thought that if you weren't following the family path, you must have been lost. I said nothing. I remember when you were in 5th grade, he continued, eyes still on the paper in his hands. You built a science project on basic neural networks. I didn't come to your presentation. I had to fly to Boston for a meeting. I figured you were young, you wouldn't remember. But you always remembered everything. I swallowed hard. That wooden desk, the Play-Doh brain model, the eager glance toward the auditorium doors. It all came back. I don't need an apology. I said, keeping my tone even. I got here not because someone pushed me, but because I knew what I was doing. But I need to say it, he looked up at me. Because if I don't, I won't sleep with all these years weighing on me. You became something even I couldn't have imagined, and I should have been the first one to believe in that. I dipped my head in quiet agreement. He sat up straight and pulled out a small invitation card. The family wants to have a dinner, he said. Not to lecture, not to reclaim face, just to listen. About Edenova, about Leah. And if you agree, we'd like to host it here, in what you've built. I looked at him for a long moment. He paused, then nodded. I know about his falsified funding contracts. My firm is reviewing all related transactions. And no excuses for the fact that Brooklyn chose to stay silent, I added. I don't need comfort. I need honesty. Only those who come with truth will be invited, he said softly. Whatever conditions you set, I'll follow them. I stood and turned on the presentation screen behind me. Then, before dinner, the family will see Nova Echo, our latest platform scheduled for international rollout next year. If they want to understand me, they'll start with the work I'm doing. Friday, 7 p.m., I said. But this time, no one shows up late, and anyone who walks through that door better be ready to respect what they once dismissed. With a slow movement, he picked up his briefcase. I'll be early, he said softly. On Friday night, exactly at 7 p.m., the third-floor elevator at Edenova opened slowly. I waited by the glass hallway, two newly framed pieces behind me on the wall. One was the Business Monthly cover with the headline, Leah Carter, the Woman Transforming American Education. The other, a faded photo of me in 5th grade, standing beside a neural network made of clay, eyes shining under the auditorium lights at Jefferson Elementary. One by one, my family entered. Dad. On time this time, wearing a plain button-down and simple khakis, carrying the look not of a CEO, but of a father relearning how to show up. Mom. Her hair in a neat bun, no heavy makeup like before, gave me a small nod instead of late words. Brooklyn, no designer bag, no heels, just a small notebook clutched to her chest. The only thing she'd ever carried that wasn't for show. I remained silent and simply gestured toward the project showcase area. For the next 40 minutes, I guided them through every layer of the AI learning model. The student behavior analytics dashboard, the learning progress prediction interface, and the aggregated data from over 90 schools currently using Edenova. No one interrupted, no one rushed to speak. They simply watched, listened, and every now and then quietly exhaled when the numbers went far beyond what they'd imagined. I ended the presentation with a short video of students from Auburn High School, the site of our first pilot program, sharing how they felt seen and less afraid of tests thanks to the new flexible curriculum. We're not just teaching, I said. We're changing how humans learn. From the roots. My mother stood still for a long time. Finally, she spoke. So softly, I had to lean in to hear it. You didn't just build a company. You rebuilt the meaning of belief. It wasn't about needing permission. It was about knowing what had to be done. After the tour, I invited the family into the main conference room where I'd arranged a round table with light snacks and water. No wine, no family mantras. My father was the first to speak. From today on, every company board meeting I lead will include one empty chair, a symbol for the voices we overlooked, but should have listened to. Brooklyn looked up. You might not forgive me right away, but I won't make excuses anymore. From now on, if you need help, I'll ask instead of assume. I offered no response. After everyone had left, I returned to my office, slipped off my shoes, and slowly walked to the photo wall. I sat down and looked at the picture of a 10-year-old girl standing beside a clumsy clay brain model, her eyes wide with innocent confidence. I whispered as if speaking to my childhood self. We weren't wrong. they just weren't ready to see. On my desk, the finalized blueprint for Nova Global, the multilingual integration platform set to expand into Canada and Japan, had just been approved. I placed my hand on the desk's surface, feeling the cold lines of the wood grain. Not because I needed to ground myself in the present, but to remind myself, I have nothing left to prove. This story isn't just a tale of startup success, it's a powerful reminder that true success doesn't need anyone's permission. In real life, many young people are trapped by family expectations and societal molds. But if you hold firm to your vision, silence can sometimes be the most powerful way to prove your worth. Eventually, those who once doubted you will have to learn to look at you with respect, not pity. What are your thoughts on Leah's journey and the way she redefined success? Share your reflections in the comments, and don't forget to follow the channel for more heartfelt, thought-provoking stories about family and life.